A warm welcome to all of you on the other side of the screen. I am the Overly Positive Fanboy, and this is Overly Positive Reviews. Well, I know last month's video was a little sparse in terms of actual reviews. Trust me, this one will more than make up for it.
Are you a suspect?
I did not kill her.
So, what we have here is a TV show based on a book I've never read, a book which also had a movie adaptation starring Harrison Ford that I have not seen. So, with no familiarity with either source material or prior adaptation, I had no expectations going in, and yeah, it was pretty okay. While all the cast are good in this, I feel like shouting out Jake Gyllenhaal in his first ever TV performance, as he really manages to sell a character who just keeps digging himself in deeper and deeper, and while I'm sure this is by design, Rusty Savage is not someone I can root for. Like, the longer the show is going on, I was just liking him less and less and less. Honestly, the only real thing I'd criticize about this show is that I felt the ending was a little rushed, but then again, apparently a second season's on the way, so I guess we'll have to wait for that before I can pass final judgment on this ending. But if you like courtroom dramas, this is a pretty good one for that audience, as the story takes various twists and turns that I genuinely did not see coming.
There is more than one way to fight a war.
House of the Dragon is back for its second season, and does it live up to its predecessor? I'd say it did. The civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons is starting to kick off, and as tensions rise, so do the increasing acts of barbarity on display. Seriously, while there's no graphic pregnancies this time around, we do get some utterly despicable stuff in this season. Using fraught character drama, twists and turns galore. The only downside is that the pacing does lend to some weird stuff, like Matt Smith wandering around a haunted house for most of the runtime. But yeah, despite some little hurdles here and there, I will still say that House of the Dragon is worth a watch for Game of Thrones fans.
We started a revolution and made this happen.
This is what life is gonna be like from now.
Okay, who asked for Sausage Party to return? In all seriousness, if you were a fan of the first film, all the food puns, mass profanity and crass humour galore, but while there's no religious stuff going on this time, as the social political nonsense that plagues humanity also begins to repeat itself in the burgeoning Foodtopia, be warned, if you thought that the food orgy at the end of the movie was pushing the envelope as far as it could go, you've seen nothing yet.
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians.
A rom-com about the moon landing? Sign me up! So, Fly Me to the Moon is ultimately a very charming watch, with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum giving likeable lead as the respective opposites-attract couple, with everybody else in the film giving memorable and likeable performances. The film's story about NASA's struggle to increase funding and get people on board with space due to a series of disasters and the Vietnam War causing waning interest in the necessity of the space flights. And of course, the last half of the film is where we get really interesting, as they incorporate the conspiracy theory of the fake moon landing in a way that I can actually really get behind. But yeah, Fly Me to the Moon. It's a great little light-hearted, breezy, fun movie, and now you can watch it on Apple TV+. And if you don't have Apple TV+, get a free trial and watch this movie. And Severance. And Wolfwalkers. And Bad Sisters. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on Apple TV+, guys.
Let's fucking go! Let's fucking go.
Oh, I have been looking forward to this one. Deadpool and Wolverine, a film from Marvel Studios where they completely ignore their cinematic universe in favour of playing with a completely different film franchise's toys. And what we get is a very entertaining romp, which still keeps all of the same Deadpool humour we've come to expect from his prior two films, with Ryan Reynolds giving the typical Deadpool performance we'd all expect by now, and Hugh Jackman as the worst Wolverine, grounding the movie with the strong emotional core we've come to expect. Well, of course, it's just really nice to see him again. We also have Emma Corrin and Matthew McFadden as the delightful baddies, and a whole slew of crazy cameos, making this probably the most surreal film experience I'll have all year. Top that off with a very interesting metaphor of how Hollywood treats the franchises that no longer succeed, and you've got a movie that's definitely a must-watch for all Marvel fans, especially if they've been with the X-Men franchise from the very beginning.
One in a myriad. All of us nothing. And all of us infinite.
The Dragon Prince is back, and it's back on a high, with a new season filled with unexpectedly compelling character drama. That one scene with Claudia is probably the standout of the season, and most likely one of my favourite animated moments of the year. But still, this season manages to advance the plot, with our heroes making great progress in the fight against Erebos, the personal dynamics that have been plaguing them for years, and the Fire Elf Civil War also kicks up a notch too. And then things end up taking a turn in the final 2 episodes that completely caught me off guard and raised the stakes effectively. If the next season of The Dragon Prince is to be its last, then sign me up.
Asking the question on everyone's mind these days, what do you think about the Batman?
I was already looking forward to this new Batman cartoon just from the people working on it behind the scenes, but then I found out the show would be set in the 1940s, thus offering something we've never really seen before in other Batman media, a period piece. This show leads more heavily into Batman's pulp noir roots, and what we get is a very engaging season of television, tackling themes of corruption and the potential fruitlessness of the fight against it. Batman is a bit more colder and detached than we're used to, even treating Alfred as just the butler, but this serves the purpose as being part of an overall arc. We also see iconic villains reimagined in interesting new ways, and this show even proves that it's willing to do things that other more serialized status quo adaptations can't quite pull off. So yeah, I'd say this show is definitely worth curious Batman fans checking out.
Help me.
Kensuke.
Michael.
Okay, how had I never heard of this until just now? What we have here is a charming little animated film based on the book by Michael Morpurgo. A story of a young boy stranded on an island and ultimately finding harmony with the island's only other resident, a Japanese World War II pilot. So yeah, this is ultimately a very compelling story with gorgeous animation and a very lovely story of 2 people learning to work together despite a language barrier. And of course, this being a story about people on an island, we inevitably end up with some sort of environmentalist message, mainly specifically that of hunters and poachers and the like. But anyway, if you can find a way to watch this film, watch it, please.
We're going to save our friends! Let's go! Come on, SpongeBob!
As a lifelong SpongeBob fan, it pains me to say that this is the first SpongeBob movie I just do not like. The central problem with Saving Bikini Bottom, a Sandy Cheeks movie, is that any potential this premise could have had, and don't get me wrong, there was potential here, is ultimately squandered by the fact that this movie is too focused on telling jokes to follow any basic storytelling conventions. This movie is more concerned with just throwing wacky set piece after wacky set piece after wacky set piece at you, with 1,000 jokes a minute, some of which feel really out of place in a SpongeBob story. And speaking of SpongeBob, the way he's written in this movie almost feels like borderline character assassination. The animation is pretty good for the most part, but I'm not entirely sure that all the Bikini Bottom residents translated perfectly into this style of CGI. And then there's that one special effect that's so nightmare-inducing I almost missed the important exposition. If you know, you know. So yeah, Saving Bikini Bottom is not good. Hopefully Search for SquarePants can be an improvement.
Did we just jet off to a billionaire's island with a bunch of strangers?
No, he's not a stranger. He's Slater King.
This is Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut? Holy crap, what a first impression! Blink Twice as a film is very unnerving to watch, as while we do spend most of the time watching a bunch of people partying on an island, you can never escape the feeling that something's wrong or that something will go wrong. And when we do find out what's going on, well, let's just say this film has a trigger warning for a reason. The cast are giving their all, but I'll give special shout out to Channing Tatum, because I don't think I've ever seen him give a performance like this before, and he utterly nails it. So yeah, Blink Twice is definitely worth giving a look, and I'd say it's definitely worth a spot in the top films of the year. Well, that was what I watched in August of 2024. I am the Overly Positive Fanboy, and I will see you next month for more Overly Positive reviews.